This is going to be a quick review on factoring, what we were doing last week. And I'm going to just start with something like x squared plus 6x minus 7. The basic idea, the real quick check that you want to do to know whether something can be factored or not is to see, do any of the factors of these two multiply together, which in this case is just -7, do any of the factors of -7 make 6, positive 6. So the factors of -7, let's just go through this real quick, could be -1, 7 or 7, -1. Okay, those are the only factors that can make -7. And the only one that's going to make a positive 6 when you combine them together is, I just did that backwards, so let me see this. This would be 1, -7. There we go. And this one is the only one that would be able to make a positive 6, because when you combine a positive 7 minus 1 would be 6. Okay, this would leave it negative, and we don't want that. So we're trying to make 7x, and it's easy when there's no number here. You just split the x squared into x, and then Sophia, not right now. Okay, and then you put these basically straight in, -1 and +7. So that is how you would factor it. Now, in order to find the solutions when factoring, we went over this last week. And what we did is we set each of these, x minus 1 equals 0 and x plus 7 equals 0. We set them both equal to 0 and then solved. In order to solve, you do the opposite. So this would be x equals 1, or x can also equal -7. And what these solutions mean, just a reminder, is that the graph of this parabola crosses at +1 and it crosses at -7. So in a graph at +1 and at -6, 7, it's going to look something like this. It's a positive, so it's going to be facing up like a U. If it were negative in front, then it would be going upside down, but it would be something like this, where it crosses here and here. That's basically what we just found are the x-intercepts. The other thing that we went over last week was if I have a number with x. So if I have 3x squared minus 5x minus 12, something like this, then basically what I have to do is I have to split this in the two parentheses. And I have to take that into consideration when I'm finding the number that's going to, how I'm plugging them in. So the factors of, you find the factors of -36. Okay, the factors of -36 that are going to make 5 are going to be 4 and 9. And the 9 has to be negative so that it comes out -5. So we're trying to make -9x, and we're also trying to make positive 4x. So when we're trying to make this term, we have to take into consideration that it's going to be multiplied by 3. So -3 times 3 makes -9, and that will work. This one just gets plugged directly in because it's multiplied by 1. And then, you have these two parentheses that you end up solving. Let me just erase some of this. Setting each equal to 0. You do 3x plus 4 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. You know that this is going to be equal to positive 3. And this one is going to, if you subtract the 4 first, it's going to be -4. But then you're going to have to divide by 3. So that would be your two answers. And this is what we did last week. So that's just a review. Now, there are a couple other ways to factor, because not always are you going to have 3 digits. So sometimes we have y equals x squared plus 4x. Okay, if you're looking at something like this is something to keep an eye out for. It doesn't have a constant, so you can't really do the factoring like I just showed you. You have to factor it a tad bit differently. And what you do is you look for anything that you can multiply to both of them and simplify it. What basically is what you can pull out of both. They both have an x, so I can pull out an x. Okay, and then I'm putting in parentheses what would I be able to multiply by x to make that? Well, x times x is x squared, and 4 times x is 4x. So that's basically what I did, and I just simplified it. So now I set x equal to 0 and x plus 4 equal to 0. Okay, that would be 0 and -4 would be my two answers. I'm going to show you another one like this, and then I'm going to show you a different method, another situation that these are kind of your special situations with factoring. Okay, so let's say we have 3x squared plus 6x. Okay, same kind of thing. You're looking at what they both have in common, and when I say in common, it has to be they have to have the same kind of factors. So these can both be divided by 3. So I can pull out a 3. These can both be divided by x, so I pull out an x. That's basically what I'm doing, 3x. So then I would, 3x times x would make 3x squared. 3x times 2 would make 6x. It's basically the distributive property backwards. You know you're going to have to multiply this by both, and it's going to end up with that. So you're just trying to kind of think backwards with that. Same thing, you're going to set each of these equal to 0. This is just going to equal 0, and this is going to equal -2. So those would be my two solutions, my two x-intercepts. Okay, if you need to see more examples like that, you can send me a message, and I can connect with you and show you some other examples that are similar to that. There's also the case where you're not missing the last number, you're missing the middle number. So let's say I had x squared minus 81. Now, most of the time, if I have like x squared minus 5 and x squared plus 3 or x squared plus 81, this exact method that I'm talking about is not going to work. But if you know that your base x squared is starting at the origin and going up, and that's your most common one, then doing something like this, a -5, is just shifting it down 5. So you would just move the whole thing down 5 and know that that's basically the same thing, same graph. And you could figure out your x-intercepts that way. The easiest way for these is just plugging in numbers for x. Plug in -2, plug in -1, 0, 1, 2, and you're going to be able to see what you're going to be able to kind of figure it out. Same with this. This would be shifting it up 3, so this would be going up 3, starting here, and going kind of like that. So these are not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a very specific situation when you have this has a square root and this has a square root. And this situation right here is called the difference of squares. It's when you're missing your middle number, there has to be a subtraction sign right there because it's the difference of squares. And they both have to be able to be square rooted. So the square root of 81 is 9. I'm just going to write that down. The square root of x squared is x. And basically what you're doing is you're putting them both in parentheses and you -1 and you subtract 1. That's basically all this is. Because when you multiply this out, this would be x squared plus 9x minus 9x minus 81. These cross cancel and you're stuck with just the first and last. So when you have a difference of squares, in order to cancel out that middle term, you have to add and subtract the two squares. So I'm going to show you, just like the other one, I'm going to show you another example. So let's say it doesn't even matter if it has a number in front as long as it has a square root. So 4x squared minus 25. Okay, what's the square root of this? The square root of this would be 2x. The square root of this would be 5. And what I'm doing is I'm putting them both in parentheses, 2x and 5. I'm subtracting one and I'm adding one. And I don't care if you write adding here and subtracting here, that doesn't matter. Okay. But then what you would do is you would set them just like we would normally. We would set this 2x minus 5 equal to 0 and 2x plus 5 equal to 0. And it's going to give you, the opposite of this is 5. And then you divide by 2. 5 halves or negative 5 halves. So those would be your two answers. So that's just a little bit, going in a little bit deeper with factoring. The reason that we have to show you other strategies, like completing the square and the quadratic formula, is because even though factoring is the easiest thing to do and it leaves it the simplest answer, you can't use it with everything. Okay, so let's take this one, for example, x squared plus 16x plus 8. Let me look at the factors of 8. I have 1 and 8, 2 and 4. That means that if my middle number here is not what can add together, either 9 or 6, if it's any other number besides 9 or 6, I won't be able to factor it. So that's kind of a lot of different problems that I wouldn't be able to solve with just factoring. So that's why it's really important that we have to have other methods as well. This one wouldn't be able to be solved with factoring because my factors don't add up to the middle. Okay, even if this was a negative here, they don't subtract to the middle because that's 2 and that's 7, so I still can't make it. And with the factoring, like I just showed you, like pulling something out, if I have 3x squared plus 4, well, there's nothing in common there. I don't have an x, and I can't pull out a 3, and so I can't really get x squared by itself anyways. And so there's other methods to solving this. If I have, if you just have an x squared and you don't have an x, one thing that you can do is you can get this over here and get x by itself and then just take the square root of it. That's a simple trick. But what I'm going to be showing you are for situations even like that you can't do. You can't solve for x, you can't factor it, and so the other two methods that are going to be really important are completing the square, which I'm going to show you in the next video, and then the quadratic formula, which looks really complicated, but it's, if you stick to the formula and you do it in the order that I say, I think it's makes it kind of easy to remember and not too hard to do. The calculator is going to do most of the work for you. So hopefully that helps. Get a hold of me if you need any, if you have any questions or if you need some help with your homework assignments. And good luck.